The Resolute Dawn drifted into orbit around the Galactic Council's core station, a structure that loomed like a giant's crown against the swirl of distant stars. Its spires shimmered with an eerie iridescence, a silent testament to eons of alien engineering. Commander Arya Valen stood on the observation deck, staring at the gargantuan station. Her sharp green eyes betrayed no emotion, but her clenched fists told a different story. "This place looks like it's waiting to swallow us whole," Lieutenant Karim Hossein said, stepping beside her. His voice was light, but there was tension in his shoulders. "It might, if we're not careful," Arya replied, her voice calm yet edged with steel. "Shuttle's ready, Commander," another officer announced. "Good," she said. "Let's not keep them waiting." Moments later, the shuttle approached the Council Chamber's docking bay, dwarfed by the sheer scale of the station. Arya adjusted her uniform, a sleek navy blue design adorned with a small insignia of Earth's unified federation. Every step she took down the shuttle ramp resonated in the cold, sterile air. The alien delegation awaited beyond, an eclectic mix of forms, colors, and sizes. The chamber itself was overwhelming. A vast dome stretched above, studded with lights that mimicked distant galaxies. Rows of delegates sat in ascending tiers, each representing a starfaring civilization. The atmosphere was heavy with scrutiny, the murmur of 100 languages blending into an indecipherable hum. At the center of it all stood High Exarch Threller Vathric, towering and menacing. His scaled form shimmered with a metallic sheen, his eyes glowing a harsh yellow. When he spoke, his voice resonated like grinding metal. "Humanity," he began, stretching the word as if it were an object to be examined. "You have been summoned to this council to acknowledge your place in the Galactic Order." Arya's boots clicked against the polished floor as she approached the central platform. Her gaze swept across the chamber, taking in the skeptical, curious, and disdainful expressions of the alien representatives. She stopped, standing straight but not rigid, her presence defiant yet composed. "Humanity stands ready to engage with the Council," Arya said evenly. Her voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, carried a clarity that stilled the hum of voices. Vathric leaned forward, his claws tapping against the edge of his podium. "Engagement, you say? How quaint. You are a species barely out of your cradle, clinging to fragile ambitions. Yet you stand before us, claiming a seat among those who have conquered entire star systems." Arya held his gaze, unflinching. "We came to learn, to collaborate, and to contribute, not to be dismissed out of hand." A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Some delegates leaned closer, intrigued by her composure. Vathric raised a hand, silencing the noise. "Such confidence," he sneered. "But confidence is not currency here. Tribute is. You will provide it, as all species must when entering the Council's fold." "What form of tribute does the Council require?" Arya asked, her tone sharp yet measured. Vathric's lips curled in a predatory smile. "The nature of the tribute is for you to decide, human. Wealth, technology, resources, offer something that proves your worth. Fail, and you will face consequences." "Consequences?" Arya's brow arched slightly, though her voice remained calm. "A reminder," Vathric said coldly, "that this galaxy rewards strength and punishes insolence." Arya said nothing for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle. She could feel the eyes of every delegate on her, weighing her, waiting for her to falter. Instead, she inclined her head slightly. "We will consider your request and respond promptly," she said. Vathric waved a dismissive claw. "You have 48 hours. The tension in the chamber was palpable as Arya turned and walked back toward her shuttle. The door hissed shut behind her, sealing her in the quiet confines of the vessel. "Commander, what do you think?" Hossein asked as the shuttle detached from the docking bay. "I think," Arya said, staring out at the void, "that this is less about tribute and more about subjugation." Hossein frowned. "They're testing us." "Exactly," Arya said, her voice tightening. "The question is, how do we respond without losing our integrity, or our future?" Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, Arya gathered her senior staff in the conference room. The space was sparse but functional, its holographic table displaying a live feed of the council station. "We need options," Arya said, leaning against the edge of the table. "We could offer a token resource," suggested Dr. Elena Park, the ship's political advisor. Her tone was cautious. "Something insignificant but symbolic enough to satisfy their demands." "And signal that we're willing to bend the knee?" Hossein countered sharply. "If we give in now, they'll bleed us dry in the future." "What's the alternative?" Dr. Park shot back. "Defiance? Against civilizations that could crush us without breaking a sweat?" Arya raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument. "Enough. We're not here to fight each other." Her eyes swept across the room, meeting each of their gazes. "This isn't just about tribute. It's about who we are and how we want to be seen. If we give in, we risk losing more than resources, we risk losing our identity." The room fell silent. Hossein nodded grimly, and even Dr. Park looked thoughtful. Arya straightened, her voice firm. "We have 48 hours. Let's figure out how to make every second count." As the meeting adjourned, Arya lingered by the observation window, watching the alien station glimmer like a distant threat. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but one thing was certain: humanity's response would define its place in the stars. "Let's see if they're ready for us," she muttered to herself, her reflection staring back with quiet determination. The dim glow of the Resolute Dawn's conference room reflected the somber mood inside. A holographic image of the Galactic Council's chamber hovered above the center table, its imposing structure now a silent reminder of the ultimatum they faced. Commander Arya Valen stood at the head of the table, her arms crossed. She didn't need to remind her team of the stakes, every face in the room bore the weight of the situation. "We have 48 hours to decide," Arya began, her tone clipped and precise. "What we present, or fail to present, to the Council will shape how humanity is perceived. We can't afford to make the wrong move." Lieutenant Kareem Hossein, seated on her right, leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "There's no tribute we could offer that wouldn't compromise us. If we give them technology, we weaken our defenses. If we give them resources, we invite exploitation. And if we give them nothing?" Dr. Elena Park countered. The political advisor's tone was measured, but there was an edge of frustration beneath her calm exterior. Defiance could provoke the Council into taking action. They wouldn't hesitate to turn us into an example for other upstart species. The room fell silent. Hossein shook his head. "This isn't just a demand for tribute. It's a test of submission. If we give in now, we'll be bowing to them forever." Dr. Park's brow furrowed. "You think I don't know that? I'm saying we need to be strategic. Defiance is a luxury we might not survive." Arya raised a hand, silencing the debate before it could escalate. "Both of you are right. This is about more than tribute, it's about power, perception, and survival. But we need a response that doesn't compromise our integrity or paint a target on our backs." She turned to Chief Engineer Adam Koenig, a wiry man with sharp eyes that always seemed to be analyzing. "Adam, what do we have in terms of resources or artifacts? Something symbolic but non-essential?" Koenig tapped at his data pad. "Nothing that would impress them. Our technology is primitive compared to the Council's. Even our most advanced prototypes would look like trinkets to them." Arya nodded, unsurprised. She took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping across the room. "We need to think outside the box. What can we offer that demonstrates our worth without compromising our future?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, unanswered. Hours later, Arya stood alone in the observation deck, staring out at the vastness of space. The Council station dominated the view, its alien geometry both awe-inspiring and oppressive. Her mind churned, replaying the debate from earlier, searching for a path forward. The soft hiss of the door announced Hossein's arrival. He stepped beside her, silent for a moment before speaking. "Tough room tonight." Arya smirked faintly. "You could say that. You're thinking about the Council, aren't you?" "I'm thinking about what they represent," Arya said quietly. Power. Control. They want us to prove our value, but what they really want is to see if we'll kneel. Hossein nodded. It's a game to them. They've been doing this for centuries, maybe millennia. Testing new species, taking what they want. But we're not just another species, Arya said, her voice sharpening. We're human. We don't bow. We build. We fight. We adapt. Hossein chuckled softly. Careful, Commander. You're starting to sound like a speechwriter. Arya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We're running out of time. I need something more than words, Kareem. The following day, Arya reconvened the team in the conference room. This time, the atmosphere felt different. The tension was still there, but so was a quiet determination. I've been thinking about what defines humanity, Arya began. Her tone was steady, but there was an undercurrent of conviction that hadn't been there before. What makes us unique among the stars isn't our technology or our wealth. It's our resilience. Our ability to face impossible odds and find a way through. She paused, letting her words sink in. That's what we need to show the Council. Not our resources, but our spirit. Our refusal to be anything less than free. Dr. Park frowned. And how do we convey that in a way they'll understand? Words alone won't sway them. We give them a message, Arya said. Something that forces them to see us for who we are. Not a weak, primitive species, but one that won't be subjugated. Hossein leaned back, a slow grin spreading across his face. I like it. But what kind of message are we talking about? Arya's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm still working on the specifics. But it has to be bold. Something they won't forget. Later that evening, Arya retreated to her quarters. The hum of the ship's engines was a steady backdrop as she sifted through humanity's history, searching for inspiration. Images and stories flashed across her screen, revolutions, scientific breakthroughs, moments of defiance against tyranny. One word kept surfacing in her mind, simple yet powerful. Freedom. It wasn't just a word, it was a declaration. A promise. A refusal to be chained. Arya's fingers hovered over her console as she drafted the framework of humanity's response. It would be risky, perhaps even reckless. But it would be true to who they were. When she finally stepped back, exhaustion tugging at her, she allowed herself a small, grim smile. Let's see if they're ready for us. By the time the Council's deadline loomed, the resolute Dawn was prepared. Arya stood with her team in the shuttle bay, her resolve unwavering. She met each of their gazes, silently conveying her confidence. We're not just answering their demand, she said. We're making a statement. For Earth. For humanity. Let's show them what we're made of. With that, the shuttle doors closed, sealing them inside as they made their way back to the Council station. As the station loomed closer, Arya's heart beat steadily, her focus razor-sharp. Humanity had chosen its path. Now, it was time to see if the galaxy was ready to listen. The shuttle docked smoothly, but the tension inside was palpable. Commander Arya Valen stood at the head of her delegation, her expression calm, her uniform pristine. Beside her, Lieutenant Kareem Hossein carried the same determination, his eyes scanning every detail of the docking bay as if expecting a trap. Remember, Arya said, her voice firm but low, we're not here to ask for permission. We're here to make a statement. Yes, Commander, came the collective response. The council chamber was as vast and imposing as before, its alien architecture gleaming under an unnatural light. Rows of delegates from dozens of starfaring civilizations filled the gallery, their eyes following Arya as she stepped to the center platform. High Exarch Threller Vathric stood at the apex, his metallic form reflecting the chamber's glow. His expression, if it could be called that, betrayed impatience. Humanity returns, Vathric said, his deep voice echoing. Have you brought your tribute, or must we teach you the cost of defiance? Arya met his piercing yellow gaze without flinching. We have returned with our answer, she said, her tone measured but firm. The murmur of alien voices rippled through the chamber. Vathric leaned forward, a predatory glint in his eyes. Speak, then. What does your kind offer to prove its worth? Arya took a single step forward, her presence commanding. She activated the small holographic device in her hand, and an image sprang to life above the chamber. Earth, seen from space, a swirl of blue and green suspended in the void. This, Arya began, her voice carrying through the chamber, is humanity's home. A fragile world, teeming with life, where we faced wars, disasters, and challenges that should have broken us. But each time, we rose again. Not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to give up. The image shifted, showing scenes of human ingenuity, cities rising from deserts, spacecraft lifting off, individuals helping each other in times of crisis. Our tribute, Arya continued, is not gold, technology, or resources. It is a single word, freedom. It is the essence of who we are. We've fought for it, sacrificed for it, and we will protect it at all costs. Vathric's eyes narrowed. Freedom? An abstract notion? You insult the council with this emptiness. Arya held her ground. It is not empty. It is everything. You seek tribute to measure our value. But humanity cannot be measured by material wealth alone. Our value lies in our spirit, in our willingness to face any foe, endure any hardship, and chart our own course. The chamber fell into a tense silence. Some delegates whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Others watched with quiet interest, intrigued by the audacity of humanity's representative. Vathric's claws tapped against his podium, his irritation evident. Your words are bold, but boldness is not currency. Words do not build empires. No, Arya said sharply. But they start revolutions. Her words hung in the air, electrifying the chamber. Vathric straightened, his metallic scales bristling. Enough. This council will not tolerate insolence. If you cannot provide tangible tribute, your species will face sanctions. Before he could continue, another voice interrupted. I disagree, said a slender alien with translucent skin, seated several rows from Vathric. His voice was melodic, yet commanding. High Exarch, perhaps you underestimate the significance of their declaration. Their defiance is unique. Arya turned her gaze toward the speaker, her face remaining neutral. The alien continued, addressing the chamber. Humanity's message is not one of arrogance but of potential. We forget that even the greatest among us began as they are now, small, vulnerable, and determined to rise above. Vathric's glare shifted toward the alien delegate. Ambassador Schiller, your sentimentality does little to strengthen this council. We must enforce our traditions. Traditions are not immutable, Schiller replied, his tone calm but firm. Humanity's defiance reminds us of the value of diversity in this assembly. They offer not gold or metal, but something far rarer, conviction. The chamber erupted in murmurs, a cacophony of conflicting opinions. Arya remained still, her heart pounding as she watched the debate unfold. She knew they were on the edge of either triumph or disaster. Finally, Vathric raised a clawed hand, silencing the room. His gaze returned to Arya, cold and piercing. You gamble with your species' future, human. Tell me, are you prepared to face the consequences of your choice? Arya stepped forward, her voice unwavering. Humanity has always faced consequences. We will face yours if we must. But know this, we will not kneel. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then, a low, rumbling sound filled the air, laughter. It came from one of the larger delegates, a hulking, reptilian figure with scarred scales. Well said, the alien boomed, his voice like rolling thunder. Perhaps these humans are worth keeping around, if only to see how far their audacity takes them. Others began to nod or murmur in agreement, the tide of opinion shifting. Vathric's expression hardened, but even he could see the momentum turning against him. With a sharp motion, he leaned back in his seat. Very well. The Council will allow humanity to retain its independence, for now. But be warned, Commander Valen. The galaxy is not kind to the weak. Prove your strength, or perish. Arya inclined her head, her expression calm despite the storm of emotions inside her. We understand. And we will prove ourselves, not as servants, but as equals. The session concluded, and as Arya and her team made their way back to the shuttle, the weight of what had just transpired began to sink in. That was one hell of a gamble, Commander, Hossein said as the shuttle doors closed behind them. It wasn't a gamble, Arya replied, her voice quiet but resolute. It was a statement of who we are. And now, the galaxy knows it. As the Resolute Dawn pulled away from the Council Station, Arya stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into infinity. Humanity's future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: they had taken their first step into the galaxy on their own terms.